He betrayed her with a cold smile and a blatant lie. But that was just the beginning. She didn't scream. She didn't beg. Instead, she channeled the mindset of a power player and crushed them both without hesitation. Curious how she turned heartbreak into a counterattack? Stick around for this wild story. They used to be the couple everyone in the industry envied. Evelyn and Marcus, two familiar names in the Bay Area financial media scene. Not only were they talented, they looked the part. Every time they showed up at a conference or a networking event, people would whisper, "They're gonna build an empire, no doubt about it." Evelyn wasn't loud. She didn't like the spotlight. She spoke little and did a lot. At work, she was meticulous. Every word in a contract, every rollout timeline, every dollar spent. No flash, just results. Marcus was the opposite. Social, charming. He could make even the grumpiest client crack a smile with the right joke at the right time. In every meeting, Marcus held the mic. Evelyn sent the slides. She used to think they balanced each other perfectly. Until one Tuesday afternoon, when Evelyn logged into the company email to quickly handle a client request. Her inbox lit up with a subject line, "Still thinking about you this weekend." Sender, Lana, sent to the shared account she and Marcus once used to coordinate with the project team. She opened the email. The message wasn't long, just a few flirty lines, some selfies of Lana in a nightgown, and a clear plan for a weekend getaway to Napa Valley. Resort name included. Saturday dinner reservation confirmed. Evelyn sat still for exactly 30 seconds. She didn't scream. She didn't smash the laptop. She just dragged the email window to her second screen, opened Notepad, and typed 2 words, Lana, Napa. She didn't say a word to Marcus that night. He got home late, as usual. New cologne. Not the scent she used to buy him. He smiled, popped open a beer, and talked about a client who just signed a deal. Evelyn nodded and did the dishes. She didn't ask, and Marcus didn't feel the need to explain. Over the next week, Evelyn paid closer attention. She noted every night he came home late, every check-in near Lana's office, every call that ended abruptly when she walked into the room. Then one day, Evelyn came home early. Marcus's car was already in the garage. Odd. Not on any meeting schedule she knew. She walked inside, and there was Lana. Lana was standing in the kitchen, wearing a man's shirt, barely buttoned. The same shirt Evelyn used to wash for Marcus every week. Marcus was sitting at the bar stool, legs propped up, sipping orange juice. They looked up at her like she was a delivery driver who'd knocked on the wrong door. Hold on. Pause for a second. If you were Evelyn and walked in on that, what would you do? Charge in? Slap them both? Kick them out on the spot? Me? I'd probably lose it. What about you? Think about it. Then see what Evelyn chose to do. Back to the story. Lana didn't move, just gave a faint smile. Marcus set his glass down. She just dropped by to grab some documents. What's with the look? He said, like Evelyn had stepped on his foot by accident. Yeah, Evelyn replied, eyes steady. Maybe next time, just leave the documents on the doorstep. No need to trouble anyone. The air dipped for a second, but Evelyn didn't wait for a response. She just walked into the bedroom, closed the door, and added another line to her notes. Shirt, orange juice, no attempt to hide. The next day, Evelyn stopped by Marcus's office to sign a client contract. As she passed the huddle area, she saw Lana sitting on Marcus's lap, arms around his neck. Middle of the day, middle of the office. Some might have called it childish PDA. Evelyn just saw it for what it was. They weren't hiding anymore. Marcus saw her. No shame. Didn't even move Lana off him. Oh, this is Evelyn, he said to Lana. She used to handle legal for us, not involved anymore. Oh, Lana nodded. Your name sounds familiar. So nice to meet you. Meet. Evelyn gave a soft, silent laugh. She nodded, turned around, and walked away. That afternoon, she didn't do anything out of the ordinary. Still took her Zoom meetings, polished slides, sent off the budget proposal. But one thing had just been stamped into her mind. This wasn't about cheating anymore. This wasn't betrayal. This was erasure in plain sight. They weren't pushing her out quietly. Marcus was wiping her off the map, out in the open, no shame, no excuses. And Evelyn knew, for that kind of disrespect, tears weren't the answer. She needed a plan, not to win her husband back, but to erase them from the very game board she built. That night, Evelyn said nothing. She didn't confront Marcus, didn't mention Lana. She ate dinner alone, folded blankets, cleaned out drawers, then opened her laptop. 3 hours later, Every shared password tied to bank accounts, stock portfolios, and investment schedules had been changed. No alerts, no notes left behind. The next morning, she emailed the legal department, requested to remove her name from the co-signed investment contracts. The reason was short and simple: no longer aligned in direction. She also called their private banker, asked to split financial oversight and lock joint access. Marcus said nothing, didn't even notice. He kept showing up to work with his usual energy, all smiles, still introducing Evelyn as "my wife" in meetings, as if the marriage was some unspoken agreement that didn't need checking in on. Truth is, Marcus was waiting for Evelyn to explode. A flipped dinner table, a scream in the middle of the night, a fight. But nothing came. No anger, no tears, not even a look of blame. She was still as water, cold as ice. Lana was the opposite. She started posting cryptic quotes like, "When you meet the right person, you don't have to apologize for walking away," or "It's freeing to finally stop living for someone else." Marcus liked them publicly. Once he even commented, "You deserve the world." Evelyn read them. She didn't block, didn't react, but she saved every link. She knew in serious games, every little scrap can become ammo when the time comes. She still showed up to the office like nothing had changed, polite in conversation, sharp in meetings, but her hours no longer revolved around the old deadlines. She was clearing the path for something else, a new campaign, this time for herself. One night, while scanning through industry news, Evelyn saw Marcus's name pop up in a short report. The corporation where he served as strategy director was pursuing a massive deal, the Nevada project, a real estate investment valued in the tens of millions, being called a game changer. If it went through, Marcus could land a regional vice president title. She stared at the screen. No jealousy, no bitterness, just one clear thought: he's making a big bet, and I'll be the one holding the final card. A few days later, at a professional conference, Evelyn spotted a name she thought she'd left buried in the past: Richard West, a notoriously private investment heavyweight, the kind who shocked the industry by refusing social media, dodging the press, and keeping his name clean from any PR scandal. 3 years ago, they'd met just once, at a closed-door seminar. Evelyn didn't pitch, didn't try to network. But during a coffee break, she and Richard had a brief exchange about the inflated numbers hidden in polished financial reports. He only nodded at the time, but Evelyn remembered that look. Not just polite interest, it was the kind of look people give when they quietly file someone away. Now, seeing his name listed as one of the veto-right partners on the Nevada deal, she didn't hesitate. She called an old assistant, someone who'd worked with Richard for a few years. "Just get me 15 minutes, she said. "I'm not coming to ask for anything." 3 days later, the confirmation email came through. Richard's office had scheduled the meeting. Evelyn closed her laptop. In her eyes was something she thought she'd lost after being dismissed too many times: the feeling of control. To Marcus, she was no longer a lead character, just a shadow, tucked behind lines like, "Sorry for the miscommunication." But with Richard, and the opportunity now in front of her, Evelyn knew she was about to return. Not to cause a scene, but to quietly rewrite the rules. The meeting with Richard happened on a Wednesday afternoon, in a private conference room inside an unmarked building in the financial district. Evelyn walked in wearing a crisp white shirt, hair pulled back, not a single accessory. In her hands, a file folder, nothing inside but raw data. Richard West was already there, calm, just like the first time they met. Nearly 60, his eyes neither stern nor welcoming. He looked at Evelyn for a few seconds, then said, "You're the only person I remember from that seminar 3 years ago, and I've met hundreds since." Evelyn gave a slight smile and pulled out a chair. "Maybe because I didn't try to make you remember me." Richard nodded. "That's exactly why I did." The conversation lasted exactly 23 minutes. No fluff, no flattery. Evelyn didn't mention anything personal, no emotional appeals, no hint of needing a favor. Everything she laid out, data, strategy, insight, was right there on the table. Clean, sharp, unembellished. 3 days later, Richard's assistant sent over a partnership contract. Evelyn was appointed external relations coordinator for the Nevada deal, which meant every third party, PR, investors, satellite funds, had to go through her before reaching the core team. The same core team Marcus had been trying to break into for the past 6 months. Evelyn read the contract line by line, then signed without a single edit. After that, she called her private lawyer, the one who'd quietly helped her detach from every account tied to Marcus. I need you to run a full financial scan on the other side, company and personal, absolute discretion. Marcus still had no idea. He was too busy running between pitch meetings, still thinking he was deep in the game, until one intermediary called, informing him that a new name had been added to the external decision-making team. The name, Evelyn Archer. He went silent for a few seconds when he heard it. Then, that same night, Marcus called her. 3 times. Evelyn didn't answer. She didn't need to. The message was clear. The deck had been reshuffled, and she was now the one dealing the cards. Lana started sensing something was off. Meetings were suddenly canceled. Emails went unanswered. That investor Marcus had bragged about, a lock for the deal, was now re-evaluating. She asked, I'm hearing someone new got involved in the project. Who is it? Does this have anything to do with the past? Marcus stared at his phone. Still no reply from Evelyn because she hadn't sent one. Just silence. Final. For the first time in years, he realized he could no longer read her next move. At her new office, Evelyn handled everything by the book. She never mentioned Marcus, never brought up the past, never hinted at any personal history. To Richard, she was simply a sharp professional. To the partners, she was the gatekeeper. First and final say on what got through. No one knew the story behind those calm eyes. No one knew she once stood face to face with Lana in her own kitchen, while the woman wore her husband's shirt and didn't flinch. No one knew she'd once been referred to as the one who used to handle legal, as if she'd already been erased. And now, she sat at the center of the very deal Marcus saw as his path to promotion. Holding the keys. Holding the power. Without raising her voice, without saying anything beyond what the job required. She didn't need to shout to prove she was back. Because she wasn't coming back. She was the center. The lines of influence had shifted. And Marcus, only just realizing it, was already a step too late. He waited for signals from the investors like a swimmer adrift, unsure where the shoreline was. His emails went unanswered. His calls declined with the usual, in a meeting, we'll call you back. But no one called back. He couldn't make sense of it. 3 weeks ago, everything was smooth. Now, nothing but silence. Meanwhile, Evelyn sat with Richard in the 28th floor conference room, wrapping up final negotiations with the French partners. She presented the media strategy, listened, took notes, and closed with one line, I don't promise anything except measurable results. Richard smiled. The partners nodded. The deal was signed by the end of the week. Marcus didn't know that. But he knew, deep down, that he was being shut out of something big, and Lana was starting to get sensitive to bad luck. She posted a midnight story. Play with knives, you'll cut yourself eventually. No names, no tags, but enough to make Marcus jump, slam his phone down on the table, and call Evelyn. The call rang, then stopped. He called again. Evelyn sent a single reply, you can speak to my lawyer. No extra words, no exclamation marks, no emotion. Like the final thread between them, quietly pulled loose. That week, Richard hosted a private dinner at his estate in Mill Valley. The guest list was tight. Just the company's executive board and representatives from the European partners. Evelyn was the only woman in the room. But no one treated her like an exception. Midway through the evening, as glasses were raised, Richard gestured toward her and said, This is the person I trust to have my back on this deal. If anything goes sideways, I make one call, and she knows exactly what to do. No one objected. A few nods, a few measured looks. But Evelyn remained composed. She simply smiled and took half a sip of wine. Marcus heard about the dinner from a secondary partner. He was convinced he should have been there. Furious, he called Lana, voice tight like something about to snap. Lana stayed silent for a few seconds, then asked, Are you sure that you didn't throw the ticket away yourself? That sentence ended the conversation. And a few days later, Lana sent one final message. I'm out. Everyone handles their own mess. She quit, deleted her social media, moved to a small tech firm on the East Coast. No one brought her up again. No one went looking. As for Marcus, doors were closing from all sides. Investors who used to call him first now said they were reviewing their portfolio. Promised deals next quarter suddenly became on hold due to internal adjustments. The door didn't slam, it just quietly shut, and he realized he was no longer a player in the game. The worst part? No one kicked him out, they just stopped letting him in. And Evelyn? She remained steady, seated behind another boardroom table. No digs, no revenge speech. But every move, every decision, every subtle nod painted the same truth. Marcus had no way back, no knockout punch, no dramatic finale, just a slow, silent dismantling with no exit. Marcus called again. No more urgency, no more heat in his voice. Just a man shrinking, message by message. Evelyn, I just want to talk. Just once. I know I messed up. Then, I'm sorry, really. And finally, a longer voicemail. I'm not asking for forgiveness. Just, if you can hear this, please, let me say goodbye. Evelyn didn't respond. No anger, no curiosity. She didn't even check the missed calls. She was at the office, preparing for her trip to Frankfurt. Richard had asked her to lead the expansion deal in Europe. I don't trust anyone else, he'd said. They need someone who knows the numbers and knows when to stay silent. Evelyn nodded. I'll go. The next morning, as she returned home, she found a handwritten envelope in her mailbox. No stamp, no return address. The paper was creased, the handwriting familiar. It was from Marcus. Inside there was only one line. No greeting, no signature. I'm sorry, that's all. No explanations, no complaints. None of the usual justifications. But this time Evelyn didn't scoff or roll her eyes. She simply folded the letter. Didn't tear it, didn't burn it. Just placed it in the bottom drawer of her office, alongside documents she no longer needed. That afternoon she met with her lawyer. Signed the paperwork to officially sell off all remaining shares in the company she'd co-founded with Marcus 4 years ago. Full transfer. I'm not keeping any rights, she said. I just want my name off everything. The lawyer looked at her, surprised. You know you don't have to cut it this cleanly. Evelyn smiled. I know, but I want it clean. I don't want a single piece of me left in that game. As she stepped out of the office, the late afternoon sun stretched across the pavement like a carpet. Evelyn paused at the intersection for a few seconds. No phone in hand, no emails to check, no thoughts racing through her mind. There was no anger left in her, just silence, whole and sealed, like a period at the end of a sentence. In the industry, no one asked about Marcus anymore. A few scattered whispers floated through conference halls. He had a good run during that Nevada deal, or lost everything messing with the wrong person. No one mentioned Lana. No one asked Evelyn what she'd done. They just knew she was still there, in every major boardroom, still introduced by Richard as the one who keeps the rhythm. Still with that same steady gaze, that same voice, never more than needed, never less than exact. And Marcus slowly faded from every headline. Not because someone erased his name, but because no one remembered it. He once had a shot, once sat on the shortlist for promotion, once took front row seats at investor launch events. Now, nothing. He wasn't pushed out. He just wasn't kept in. Not a single person asked where he'd gone. Evelyn exited the international terminal through the priority lane, carrying nothing but a suitcase, a passport, and an invitation from the French partners. No one saw her off. No goodbyes needed. She knew she'd walked this road to the end, and left no loose threads for the past to grab onto. She didn't need a victory. She just needed the ending to be done right. Evelyn didn't choose to stay in the city. She didn't go back to the old neighborhood either. Her new apartment sat in a quiet coastal town, nearly 2 hours from her former workplace. Far enough, still. She bought it through a private account under her own name. No announcements, no housewarming, no headlines, not even a congrats from colleagues, just a contract, a key, and a sky so blue it didn't bother to move. On her first morning there, she woke before sunrise. No alarm, no flood of emails. She made herself a cup of black tea, opened her notebook and wrote a few lines. Not a diary, just notes, things to do, ideas for the next project, a few names, a few goals, and one line bolded, no one else controls my time anymore. The day moved on, steady, unhurried. No chaos, no noise, and absolutely no one cutting in. One afternoon, while stopping by the old office to finalize paperwork for the European handoff, a former colleague stepped into the elevator and leaned in quietly. Don't you think this all went a little too far? Evelyn turned. No surprise, no tension. Just a small smile, like she'd heard a mildly awkward joke. I just put everything back where it belongs, that's all. No reply came, and the elevator stayed silent from the 18th floor to the ground. No one mentioned Marcus or Lana anymore. Not because it was forbidden, but because there was nothing left worth mentioning. In meetings, no one quoted them. In trade publications, no photos. In shortlists for new opportunities, no trace of their names. As if they'd never made it into the game, Evelyn now quietly commanded. As for Richard, he didn't love Evelyn, and she didn't need him to. What stood between them was clear trust, stripped of sentiment. He gave authority, she executed. He stepped back. She never overreached. In a world full of tangled alliances and quiet ambition, Richard made one simple choice. Evelyn would be the last person he spoke to before every major decision. For her, that was enough. At night, Evelyn often stood on the balcony, watching the waves. No heavy winds, no traffic, just the steady sound of water, constant, unchanging, loyal, like the breath of something older than all revenge. She stood there, glass in hand, eyes unfocused. She didn't need to look far anymore. All she needed was the feeling of not bracing, not performing, not holding anything but herself. She didn't need to be told she was right, didn't need a pat on the back, didn't need an audience. Because everything that needed to happen had happened, and everyone who was wrong had carried their own weight to the end. She didn't need to beat anyone. She just needed to beat herself, the version that once lost quietly out of softness, out of love, out of misplaced hope in someone unworthy. And when the night wind passed through her hair, under the soft light of a room just bright enough, Evelyn told herself, not aloud but sharp as a blade, "They thought I'd break. I only stepped back to strike with precision." Some say forgiveness is power, but sometimes letting go at the exact right moment and rising in a way no one saw coming is what makes the world go quiet. Evelyn didn't take revenge with knives, cruel words, or some loud final act. She chose to end it in silence, long after they'd already fallen out of the game without even realizing it. We can't control who betrays us, but we can choose how to turn that betrayal into leverage and make sure we never return to the losing side again. And don't forget to hit subscribe on Love Stories so you don't miss more raw, real, and powerful family dramas. We share these stories so you know you're not alone. Thanks for staying with us until the end. See you next time.